jumping lights, he just wants to be heard.
We are the Aussie guys. Hello and welcome. It's AJ here. We are here for our New England Patriots preview, and I'm about to get on the line Lewis Glover. He's a writer for DFF Fantasy. He is on the Vault Studio. He's the commish of the Aussie Bowl. We've had him on before, but let's get him on the line and have a chat. Patriots. Okay, I've got Lewis on the line now. Lewis, a warm welcome. How you doing?
I am fantastic. Thank you very much for having me back on the show. It hasn't been too long, so we've done really well.
No, absolutely. And I'll just mention right at the top, Fantasy Football Down Under at FF_Down Under. And I mentioned the Vault Studio already and writer for DFF Fantasy, but I haven't mentioned the Aussie Bowl. So let's talk about that right off the top. So how's that looking?
Well, we filled it. We did a great job. We got 180 players all signed up, all paid for. We did a little bit of an extra whip rounds, and so we were able to donate $1,300 to the Smith family, which was
fantastic.
Which was a really nice feeling. So thank you to everyone who's involved for their generosity. These kind of things don't happen without everyone's willingness to put their hand in their pocket. So kudos to everyone who's participating and also chipped in a little bit more than the suggested amount as well. So that's awesome. The draft will start on the 10th of August. I've had a few people already messaging me going, when's the draft starting? And it's going to be a slow draft as well. So it's going to take us right up to the start of the NFL season for a few of the divisions. So really excited for that to kick off this year. And to be honest, I've got to definitely put in a better performance in my own league than I did last year. I missed the playoffs. So we can't be having that this year.
Oh, I did too. I think I was close to the bottom of my division, not helped by my Darius Geis pick.
Yeah,
that was a shocker. Mind you, I mean, Scott Fishbowl, obviously we've drafted already. I think the owners of Tyreek Hill would have to be pretty happy because he was drafted pretty late.
Yeah.
But it won't be the same. The Aussie Bowl now, his value will be up there again, I imagine.
Yeah, he'll be a first and second round pick. The only thing, because it's super flex and tight end premium, that might push him into the second round. But I'm sure there'll be some people, itching to take Tyreek Hill.
I'm sure. Hey, let's talk Patriots. It's always, you know how it is, I'm sure. But like, as a non-Patriots fan, so there's the Patriots fans and non-Patriots fans. We're one big group, and Patriots fans are one big group. And I always kind of, I'm kind of exaggerating when I say I do this through gritted teeth, but it's sort of it's a love-hate. Like, as a non-Patriots fan, I can appreciate the brilliance of Bill Belichick. I can appreciate the brilliance of Tom Brady, who's turning 42, is he, this year?
I believe that's the case, yeah.
I can appreciate how the Patriots do something with nothing frequently, like you honestly, like, you look at the roster, generally you look at the roster and you think to yourself, oh, they're not going to be able to do it this year. And yet Bill is the master at putting people in positions to succeed. And it makes you also wonder how other coaches around the league can't seem to do that,
Yeah, it's funny. Before I even, discussed about jumping on and talking Patriots with you, I was thinking about this the other day and just why Bill Belichick's coaches who go elsewhere often struggle. And I just think that Bill knows so much and just sees the game in such a way that he can't even convey it to most people around him. Even if they're sharp, even if they're great football minds, he's speaking on an entirely different level that only a handful of people understand and can really, digest and comprehend. And that's why his coaching tree, relative to some of the other great coaches in the NFL, is so middle of the road.
Oh, really. Yeah. And also, I'm not really super convinced that he's really that great a mentor necessarily. I don't know whether he sees himself as that. I honestly don't know.
No, I mean, you'd have to think that he would never mentor a coach to go on and have success elsewhere at the expense of the current success of the Patriots. So he's definitely not putting in the work. And according to the internet rumors, that was part of why Josh McDaniels U-turned on the Colts, is that Belichick was willing, I presume because he sees the light at the end of the tunnel.
Right.
Or it's coming close to the end of his career as a head coach to say, actually, I will take this time and invest in you to hand the and maybe who knows, right? You just don't know how these things are going to play out, but that's one possibility. But I think you're right. I don't think he spends all of his time grooming coaches to go and get wins against the Patriots elsewhere.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, Josh McDaniels had a fairly average stint as head coach of the Broncos. And it's kind of, you always have to kind of build up to get that second chance. And as you said, he was like really suddenly highly touted and now in demand. And I sort of feel, the jury's out on Matt Patricia. I know it's only been a season, but still it's sort of like, I don't know. You don't sort of see it, really.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I will say about Josh McDaniels, though, he obviously didn't have the greatest success, but he wasn't working with the best situation at quarterback in Denver, was he?
No, I know.
Tim Tebow is not an NFL quarterback. As fun as he was to watch at times, he's definitely not an NFL quarterback. So,
no.
But yeah, Matt, like you said, the jury is very much out on Matt Patricia, and he's a bold strategy. He's just gone and signed a bunch of old Patriots players.
Yes,
they really are the Patriots of the NFC over there in Detroit. It's a strange situation.
Yeah, well, let's talk off season, and
sure.
I was going to start, with the team. This is fairly early in our team previews, but with all of our team previews, we usually start with a bit of a recap of 2018. But we don't really need to do that, particularly.
I mean, we can spend an hour of recapping if you want 2018. That's fine.
Nah, it's okay. We all know what happened. So, but here's the challenge, and it always seems to be. I remember last off season talking about all the storylines coming out of New England. And the similar storylines, probably not as dramatic ones, or actually, I shouldn't say, there's lots, really. And some of the key losses, for example, Chris Hogan, Gronk is the obvious one. Trey Flowers was a big loss. Trent Brown, massive loss. Eric Rowe, Cordarrelle Patterson, who, it's funny saying him, listing him as a loss, but that's a classic Belichick move.
I was upset when he left. I must admit, because outside of Gronk, of the names you've listed so far, the other guys left for ridiculous deals.
Right.
Cordarrelle Patterson left on a fairly innocuous deal. That was the one we knew Gronk was retiring. Out of those names you've listed so far, that's the one that was most unexpected to me.
Oh yeah, and then the people coming in the building. Not really anything that sets the world on fire. If anything, the draft, which we'll hold off on for a second, but
sure.
Maurice Harris, Dontrell Inman, he's pretty good. He's average. He's a sort of handy
you saw
addition.
a bit of him at the Chargers.
Yeah, he's reliable. He's a reliable guy. He's a real workhorse. Michael Bennett, John Simon, Jamie Collins coming back, of course. Terrence Brooks, safety, but nothing that sort of. Nothing that really kind of screams out at you, really.
Yeah, you're right. Going back to talking about Belichick for a moment, isn't the Jamie Collins transaction the most Belichickian thing?
Oh.
It just, right? The dude was screaming to be paid.
Yep.
They traded him to Cleveland. I think it was a third-round pick at the time. I could be wrong. It wasn't huge compensation, and people were quite upset about that. But
yep.
He wasn't. He was going to be out of contract, gets a huge payday with the Cleveland Browns, plays fairly pedestrian, okay. definitely not up to his contract, and lo and behold, he's back with the Patriots for, nothing. It was
pennies on the dollar. Yeah,
pennies on the dollar, and they this is what allowed them to have success last season as well. They did the same thing, maneuvering around the draft. They got Devin McCourty for Jason McCourty,
yes,
the cornerback. They got him from the Browns for trading back a handful of spots in the draft. That's what it worked out to be.
Right.
These kind of creative moves, for want of a better term, but they're just very intelligent and finding value in veterans where people and other teams are looking for the shiny new toys. And the list of names you just reeled off is a perfect example of that. Bennett coming from Philadelphia was a 6th or 7th round draft pick. It was a very, very minor compensation.
Yes. And it's ironic that we talk about the Browns because if anyone is playing the Moneyball game in this league, it's the Patriots, because this is what Bill does is, and the scouting department, whoever he's built in his team, is they look at the particular skill set a player has and they just slot it in perfectly, you know?
Yep.
And so it wouldn't surprise me to see Jamie Collins have a real bump up of a year. Like, he could have the best year he's had in the last 3 or 4, easily. It wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, and you'd think he's got some personal and professional pride at stake as well to prove to Belichick and the organization that they made a mistake by letting him go in the first place. I mean, whether he still has that, and you know, maybe some of his drive and desire after getting his nice payday, maybe some of that's gone. I know I'd find it hard to get out of bed after 30 or 40 million sat in the bank account.
Absolutely. Now, looking at the whole picture, the draft, because quietly, a really good draft, actually, I think. N'Keal Harry in the first.
Draft.
And see, this is, okay, N'Keal Harry. Let's just talk about N'Keal Harry for a minute, because everybody, and like obviously we're big into fantasy, and everybody has been like, oh, who's the tight end to grab in New England? Well, the answer is nobody, none of them, because they're all kind of, I mean, I don't even know if Matt Lacoste is still on the roster or not, but I mean, like, they're all kind of average dudes.
Yeah, I mean, Matt Lacoste is still on the roster, and he is the absolute definition of just a guy. Exactly. I mean, you look at his profile, and there isn't one thing that stands out as going, not even good, not even above average. None of his measure. I mean, apart from the fact he's 6'6" and 250, he has limited college production. He was an undrafted free agent. He has no outstanding athletic measurables. The dude is just the definition of pedestrian at the NFL level. The man's a walking freak show compared to you or I, but just at the NFL level, when you're comparing him to the outgoing Gronk with a broken back is more athletic than this kid.
Oh, yeah. And, you know, the whole evolution of that whole 2 tight end set with He Who Won't Be Named featuring as well. I mean, that evolved out of the fact that these were the chess pieces that Bill had, and so he used them, you know. And now it's not a case of, I mean, I don't think Belichick thinks this way, like, oh, I need to replace Gronk, because you can't. How do you replace Gronk? So instead, what he's thinking is, well, what can I do? Well, here's a guy, N'Keal Harry. I like his skill set. I like what he'll offer in the red zone. You know, I like his ability to go up and, you know, high point the ball. Brilliant. That's the kind of guy that we can slot in and use.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really like N'Keal Harry. He was very fun to watch at ASU. He has a lot of solid attributes. Athletically, he was fine. He did enough to sort of pass the thresholds that you look for. So I'm very excited to see what he can do. Optimistic but cautious, just because wide receivers struggle. Oh yeah, so often it just can take them a season. The one thing I will say is that he's going to be getting tons of reps these first few weeks of training camp with Julian Edelman out, which I think is huge for him. He was also working out with Tom Brady all through the offseason, which Patriots fans, including myself, were very pleased to see. That the first round pick just made a lot of money, probably. You know, his profile's just shot through the roof, and quite frankly, there was no publicity from him. You didn't see him appearing anywhere, and he's out in Montana working with Brady. Like that's a huge thing to get those reps in that he wouldn't otherwise have got.
And just sort of off topic, but you know, there's guys who, as fantasy fans, you know, the guys who just can't get out of their own way, and I'm kind of thinking of guys like Ezekiel Elliott, for example. And yet, people like Tom Brady, maybe this is the secret to his longevity, is he just works his ass off. That's what he does. You know, head down, bum up, and he just puts in the hard yards, doesn't he? Yeah, he does. And there's examples of players like that all throughout the league, and more often than not, they're the ones who are successful. And you do have your absolute freaks, someone like Josh Gordon, who was literally playing in the NFL, drunk and high, with Brian Hoyer as his quarterback, setting records. Yeah. Like that, it still boggles my mind to think about that when
playing wide receiver is in the NFL is one of the hardest athletic jobs in the world.
Yeah.
It's just a ridiculously difficult thing to do. And there's a tiny percentage of humans that can do it. And to think that he will go out there and be so good, he could be drunk and high and still not just get by and be okay, but dominate. Apart from those guys, those once-in-a-generation freaks, the ones that come in and put the work in and dedicate themselves to it, as you said, are the ones that more often than not have the success.
Yeah, absolutely. Whew, yeah, so listen, let's talk about Brady just really quickly because, look, there's not a whole lot to say, honestly, and we've said some already. He turns 42 in August. Obviously just claimed his 6th Super Bowl victory. He threw for 4,355 yards, 29 touchdowns and 11 interceptions. And that was despite working with a fairly diminished, receiving core, and with Gronk, being sort of dinged up for most of 2018 as well, And that's amazing numbers. But I guess the big question, the million-dollar question, multi-million-dollar question, is when does he slow down? Honestly, like what?
I mean, he did show some signs of starting to slow down last season. He missed some throws, particularly the short and intermediate ones that he had no business missing. But the slow start to the season, obviously not having Julian Edelman around was a problem because he wasn't that he was just suspended for the first 4 games. He couldn't be a part of or around the team. So, getting back on the same page and integrating him back into the offense was huge. Gronk was... I think Belichick and the team knew from the start of the year it was going to be Gronk's last season.
Yeah.
Because he could still play. I mean, he was integral to the success that the Patriots had throughout the playoffs. And they won games because of him. But he was used so sparingly throughout the season as an absolute last resort in the receiving game. And really, they asked him to go out and block. And they said, we're not going to get you over the middle getting laid out all the time. We understand you're banged up. We understand, this is going to be your last season. We need you to be an additional lineman for us, essentially, is what he was doing half of the time.
Yeah.
And so you take those two things away. Yeah, Chris Hogan just didn't catch or didn't, continue his upward trajectory with the Patriots. And then there was a few other guys there. James White worked in quite well, but the offense wasn't humming, and in part that was definitely in some part because Brady missed throws that he ordinarily wouldn't. He was putting the team on occasion in difficult must-convert situations, or wasn't converting in situations that you would ordinarily expect him to. Right.
And when you look at the depth chart, it's there's not a lot there. Obviously, N'Keal Harry, and we mentioned he's a rookie. So, we've got to sort of keep expectations, keep a bit of a lid on things. Julian Edelman, obviously. Philip Dorsett. Dontrell Inman. Demaryius Thomas is on the roster. And tight end, Ben Watson, he's suspended for the first 4, I believe.
4 games, yep.
Matt Lacoste, and really, I guess, ultimately, you have to really talk about running back because that's really where a lot of the dump-offs and a lot of the action is going to be on the offensive side because really, there's not a lot there's not a lot there to stretch the field.
3 first-round picks there, thank you very much.
Yes, well, that's true. That is true.
No,
yes.
You're absolutely right. Dorsett, although he's a first-round pick, he
shouldn't have been.
Should never have been one. And to be fair, he's he was a deep threat speedster type guy, and he sort of had a little bit of a connection with Brady and has become, I would say, reliable. Not enough to game plan against and worry opposing defenses dramatically or anything like that, but he definitely is becoming a reliable outlet. Demaryius Thomas, I'd be surprised if he plays in the first 6 games, given his age and the Achilles injury and things like that. Edelman is going to be there. He has got a broken thumb or fracture at the moment, expected to miss a few weeks of camp. Not too concerned about that, just because he and Brady, work out together all off season. He can throw to him in his sleep. But apart from that, like you said, there isn't a lot. And so the running game, it wasn't surprising to see them go back in and get another running back. Not only Sony Michel, limited in the passing game, but he's also got question marks over his knee at the moment. James White is a pretty one-dimensional type player, receiving back, can't really carry much of the load. So I wasn't surprised to see them go and get Damian Harris.
No, it's a good addition, really, to the backfield. And look, a lot of people are making more of this Sony Michel thing than really, I think, should be made of it. I sort of feel like he had such a fantastic playoffs. I mean, far out. I mean, a slow start to the year, but I mean, there was injuries. But, man, he came on strong. And he is such a powerhouse. It's fantastic to watch.
Yeah, he was really, really good. I mean, credit a lot of his production, I would say, to the offensive line.
Yeah.
They were tremendous, and he was strolling through some of the holes. But, he still got through the holes and at times fought through contact. And, yeah, he played well last season, that's for sure.
So the offensive line's a bit of a question mark. So we'll agree that the running game looks pretty good.
Yeah.
And I don't really even count people like Rex Burkhead and, sorry. I'm just sort of saying, well, Michelle, White and Harris, man, that's fantastic on its own. Burkhead, if he makes the roster, will just sort of be a bit of a role player, maybe, not much. But look, there's a lot of talent there for sure. James White is, perpetually underrated, isn't he?
Yeah.
But the offensive line, though, there are some question marks, and I think with Brady being his age as well. So Trent Brown was obviously a big loss. Isaiah Wynn, who was a first rounder of yours last year, but had a season-ending injury in the preseason. He'll take the field for the first time at left tackle, I believe. And you've also got, let's see, Shaq Mason and Joe Tooney, both really outstanding. David Andrews at centre, who's great at pass protection. But so a little bit of movement on the line. Any concerns you have?
A little bit. They also added Yodny Kajust, I think his name is, in the draft in the 3rd round. Out of West Virginia, I want to say.
Ah, yes, yep. Mm-hmm.
And so, added there. But at the risk of coming across as a silly, arrogant Patriots fan, when Dante Scarnecchia is coaching up that offensive line, I don't have too many concerns. Now, if he retired tomorrow again, I'd be hitting all panic buttons.
Yeah. No, it's a fair call.
2 seasons in a row, they've lost left tackles to then record-setting deals. First Nate Solder, and then, as you mentioned, Trent Brown, who they acquired for a 3rd-round pick and then got a 3rd-round compensatory back. So essentially they got nothing for a Pro Bowl caliber season, and then good for him, went and signed the highest offensive line contract in, I believe, league history.
Yes.
So, fantastic for Trent Brown and his family. Good for him. Whether he'll replicate that performance remains to be seen, because he was, he wasn't much of a starting lineman before he came to the Patriots and worked with the other linemen on the line as well as Scarnecchia. So, and now he's got the severe misfortune of being coached by Tom Cable.
Yes.
I mean, it's like going from being coached by Belichick to being coached by Adam Gase, right? There's a big drop off in the quality of coaching that he's going to get. So good for him. He got his money, but I think that'll look like a massive overpay. But back to the Patriots, like I said, with Scarnecchia there, I have confidence in him to be able to get the best out of. And some of the names you mentioned there performed exceptionally well last year. Anyway, Marcus Cannon was a fantastic. I think he played most of his snaps at right tackle.
Yep.
He was really important for the team. And so hopefully Wynn coming back as well.
Yeah.
I'm curious that he's going to be playing left tackle. That's obviously a huge role for him. I mean, he when he was drafted, he was they weren't entirely sure where they were going to plug him in. So given that there's a team need at left tackle, it doesn't surprise me at all that that's the plans with him. Nice for Michelle, who ran behind him at college as well. So
that's true.
that works out nicely. But I'm feeling okay about the offensive line. Are there better units in the league? Absolutely. is Brady going to be getting sacked 4 times a game? I don't see it, particularly because he gets the ball off so quickly.
Yeah, look, you do raise a very good point, and I might segue across to the defense because it sort of raises, I've got a bit of a parallel there with Trey Flowers, because what used to happen with what you would often see with the Patriots defense as a whole, but certainly D-line, is a whole lot of guys performing really well in rotations. And Trey Flowers going to Detroit, obviously reuniting with his ex-D coordinator, I don't have as high hopes for him in Detroit. I honestly don't. I don't think he's going to perform to the level we've seen him perform in New England. But still, he's a massive loss. So
no doubt.
He's your best pass rusher. It wasn't even close behind him. So no one got more than 4.5 sacks besides Flowers. You did sign Michael Bennett, but he's turning 34 this season. He recorded 9 sacks for the Eagles last year. Can still play well. You've got Dietrich Wise Jr., who's sort of average. And Chase Winovich, who we didn't mention before, drafted in the 3rd round.
I like him.
I do too.
He plays like a hard-nosed, real football guy. He's there to hurt people and sack the quarterback. So I'm excited to see him play.
Yes, and it's like when you're a fan of a team and you obviously follow the draft very closely and you see the thought process, right? So like N'Keal Harry, okay, I can see how that works. Chase Winovich, right, that makes sense. Trey Flowers left the building. Let's get Chase Winovich. He looks fantastic on film, and it makes sense. Whereas that doesn't always happen, You don't always see teams kind of fill needs like this, and it sort of seemed like a fairly obvious and a really good pick.
See, excellent value in the 3rd round.
Yes. Interior pass rush is a little bit more of a question mark. Lawrence Guy, Mike Pennell, Danny Shelton are solid.
Yeah, Shelton's a 2-down run stuffer.
Yes.
He's not getting to the passer.
Yes, it's funny. That's what I wrote down. I wrote down, good luck running against this D-line, but I don't know that they're going to be putting a lot of pressure on opposing quarterbacks, honestly.
No, the pressure's going to have to come from the outside. They're going to be versatile. They're not going to be locked into one scheme. They've got some speed at linebacker. I think Jamie Collins should get a few sacks. I think they're going to line him up and give him a chance to display his athleticism.
Yep.
They had a linebacker, I think, Jawan Bentley.
Yeah.
He's got some serious wheels about him.
Yep.
So I think you're going to see, a lot of linebackers coming off the edge.
Yep.
Going after the opposing quarterback. But I think they'll rely on getting some coverage sacks, to be honest, this season. They haven't got that clear stud pass rusher who's going to take a lot of attention.
Yeah.
And so I think they're going to have to rely on Stephon Gilmore taking away an entire side of the field and, the other defensive backs in rotation with Devin McCourty offering help as well.
Yep. Yep, and you've pretty much covered everything I wrote down just then, because I basically wrote down that, Jamie Collins, I'm a big fan of. I'm not a big fan of Donta Hightower or Kyle Van Noy. I think they're kind of just guys. They're serviceable. But Jawan
Van Noy had a good season last year, but very much, I think, product of his environment. And Hightower didn't look the same last year as he'd done in previous years. He looked like injuries had taken a bit of a toll on him. Hopefully he's back to full health for this season, but in the NFL, once those injuries start to rack up, it's pretty hard to get back on top of them.
Yes. But Jawan Bentley, yes, I'm glad you mentioned him because I really like him, and I reckon he's got some good opportunity to step up. But also, the secondary is good but aging. So getting older, and
You're describing the entire Patriots organization.
I am.
Good but aging.
Yeah. And they performed fantastic last year, obviously, but I wonder how the lack of pass rush is going to affect them. You mentioned Stephon Gilmore, obviously fantastic. Jason McCourty, who considered retiring this off-season. He turns
I'm very
32.
glad he decided to stay, though.
Yeah, but again, you sort of see the pick, the second-round rookie, Joanne Williams. I don't know if I said that right. He might get opportunities to be in the rotation right away.
Yeah, entirely possible. Entirely possible that he'll be getting those opportunities, because it's pretty thin. It's pretty thin once you get past the two starters.
Yes, Devin McCourty obviously is also 32 in August. And Patrick Chung and Duran Harmon are kind of Jags as well.
Yeah,
in my opinion. Well,
it's fair to say they're fine. They're serviceable NFL players, but you're not turning on your TV to watch them play defense. That's for sure.
No. So the big question is, how are the Patriots going to fare in 2019? Now, the AFC East continues to look pretty weak. Since 2003, the Patriots are 127-21 at home. And they were 9-0 at home last year. So, I think it's probably... I wouldn't put money on them not to win the AFC East, for example. I think that's
right. The smart
call.
Money says that should... as long as Belichick and Brady are still there, unless he falls off a cliff dramatically, and I hate that term because it's immeasurable. What does that even mean? But unless he's a significant drop in his performance levels, I can't see any of the other teams in the next year, even two. Let's say let's just be cautious and say this year I can't see any team in the AFC East topping the Patriots this season. I really like Sam Darnold as a quarterback. It pains me to say, but the Jets have got a good one. Now, whether he can survive Adam Gase and come out unscathed the other side is a different story.
Yep.
But he's so young. I mean, literally the youngest starting quarterback ever. So he's got so much room to grow. I don't think the Bills have got the answer in Josh Allen. I think they'll be moving on in the next couple of seasons. But I do think that they're putting together a solid team. They're gonna have excellent defense. Talk about addressing a position of need, which is the offensive line. They went out and just threw money and draft picks at it. So I mean, great for them. I think that's going to help them considerably. And the Dolphins, their roster on paper's abysmal. And they have no experience in coaching, but it looks, if you're going to rebuild, do the rebuild right, and that's definitely what they're doing. So good for them, but it's going to be a few years before we see the Dolphins competing in the AFC East again. I think the Jets are the main threat to the Patriots, and they're not quite there yet. No,
and they're not really much of a threat. So what do you see the Patriots' record being? And it's kind of a loaded question, but I mean, like, what are your hopes? I mean, obviously your hopes would be another Super Bowl, but I mean, what do you think is a realistic record or result?
Yeah, realistically, being objective, I think it's a tough one.
I guess if you sort of stack this current Patriots team up against, say, the cream of the AFC, like what are we talking? Maybe Colts, to a lesser extent Chargers, maybe Texans.
No, they've got Colts, Chargers, Texans, Chiefs. They're all better sides on paper. The Browns, week one against the Steelers, I expect the Patriots to lose that game. I mean, what a game to open the season.
That's a cracker, yeah.
But yeah, I expect them to lose that game. Then they got 3 games on the bounce within division. So at Dolphins is always a hard one. They struggle down there. Start the season slow. I'm already foreseeing the newspaper articles. The Patriots start the season 0-2. Max Kellerman's on ESPN. I told you the cliff was here. It's all over. The Patriots and then they get back on. They get the Jets at home. I think they'll right the ship. They'll go into Buffalo and win there because that's what they do. At the Redskins, either it's Case Keenum or a rookie quarterback leading their team there. I don't see that being a problem. Giants at home, at Jets. So I think the Patriots come out of the first 4 games. Let's say 4 games. Excuse me. Why did I say 4? I meant 7 games. I think they come out of that probably optimistically 5-2. Realistically, probably probably 4-3, and then you've got an incredible matchup in week 8 against the Browns. And I think if the Browns start their season the way that they should on paper with the talent that they've got, I think that could be a real litmus test for the Patriots roster to see where they're at. Because by the time you get to that, you're talking about the bones of the season right there. And at the Ravens, that's always a difficult game going on the road to the Ravens. And then you get the bye week. So 9 games in, if the Patriots are 5-4, I wouldn't be surprised. There's some banana skins in there.
Yeah. Oh, look, whatever happens, it's going to be a hell of a ride. And it's funny you sort of mentioning about writing the headline, because one of the things we've been asking people for our previews is to give us, like we've often sort of said, marquee player or something like that, but we're asking people just what's the headline? Write the headline for 2019. So 12 months time, we're looking back. What was the headline on the Patriots 2019 season?
It was something to the effect of, Brady can't do it alone at the age of 42, and I think they make the playoffs and they go out on the road to maybe the Texans. They go out on the road to the Texans I don't know how the schedule all lines up, but I think they probably go out in the first round they play in the playoffs because they're on the road and they're not seeded high enough. That would be my guess. They won't play in the wild card. They'll get through. They'll win the division, but I think they won't have the record to have a home game. I think if they somehow get home field advantage, they should probably go all the way to the Super Bowl, just because of history and what tells us and how Brady plays at home. And it's just a different at that time of the year. It's going to be snowing up in New England. People have seen it before, but if they have to go on the road in the playoffs, I find, based on where the roster is at right now, of course that can change. So much can change between now and just the start of the season. But I think it's going to be a good, not great season for the Patriots. That's where I'm at.
And frankly, that's like a hell of a motivation for AFC teams, because one of the things you don't want to have to do is go to Foxborough to play in the playoffs.
Yeah.
So
without question, right? The Chargers experienced that firsthand last year.
Right.
They were a hot team coming in, and they were beaten around the head repetitively for most of that football game. Now the Chiefs probably seeing a bit of a window because they have to pay Patrick Mahomes, and if they keep Tyreek Hill, they're going to have to pay him and extend Travis Kelce, and they need to add some pieces on the defensive side of the ball. But they're probably thinking they've got a great opportunity to get back to the AFC Championship game this season and hopefully go one step further. So there's a lot of teams with a lot to play for in the AFC, and that's not even mentioning the Steelers, the Browns, some fantastic other rosters in the AFC, which all of a sudden is looking like a very strong division, whereas last season it was, the AFC's really weak, the NFC is all where it's at, but I think the AFC is equally as strong.
Yeah, I agree with you. Well, listen, that about wraps it up. I think we've covered it off really, really nicely. And bring on football. We're not that far away now.
We've nearly made it. We've nearly made it.
We have nearly made it. Thank you very, very much for joining me for our Patriots preview, Lewis. And obviously we've had you on before. We'll talk fantasy content at some stage as well. And Aussie Bowl coming up. Look forward to that very, very much. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me on. It was an absolute pleasure. I tried to remain as objective as possible. Oh, you don't have to. We don't expect our guests to be necessarily objective. I think there was one year when, after we went through all the team previews, we kind of tallied all the predictions we had, and it was like ridiculous. Like, I don't know if anyone, apart from maybe sort of the odd Browns fan or someone, sort of said anything less than like a 9-7 or 10-6 finish. You sort of look at it and go, I don't know if this really works. Yeah, the math doesn't quite add up. Yeah, as we were talking about before we started recording, once you get so in the weeds with your team, it can be very easy to start looking at the team with rose-tinted spectacles. And I can't blame fans to do it, because you want to see the best in your side. You get excited for the season, and you want to have something to look forward to. So it's an easy thing to do. Yeah, of course. No one No one will sort of point the finger. You're doing that. It's expected.
So I've seen Bengals fans on Twitter say they've got a great shot to go to the Super Bowl this year.
Right.
With genuine... So, there you go.
Well, yeah. You've got to be optimistic, especially at this time of year. For some fans, that's all they've got. So, you've got to take it. Thank you so much. I'm going to let you get on with the rest of your evening, but it's been a pleasure chatting with you. And, we'll chat again sometime very soon, I'm sure. Yeah,
likewise. Absolute pleasure, and we'll talk soon.
Cheers.
Thanks, mate.
And that was our Patriots chat with Lewis Glover. As I said, fantastic guy. Give him a follow at FF_Down_Under. And this is number 2 team preview. And my first team preview without G, who is literally right at this moment of recording, boarding a plane for, Austria and Spain. No, Spain and Austria. Well, mountain biking. So he's got his bike with him. I've asked him to sort of send some little audio clips and say hi and that sort of thing. And when he does, I'm going to whack him in to the end of team previews that I'm recording. So anyway, we'll see what happens. And hopefully we actually see him again with all his limbs intact. I don't know. That's like a coin toss, I think, at this stage. Let's hope. Let's hope it all works well. Anyway, thanks for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed this one. I'm in the thick of recording team previews at the moment, so as you listen to this one, there'll be another one on the way in 1 or 2 days' time, and I'll just keep churning through till the season starts. Bring on the season. Thanks for listening, everybody, and till next time, catch you later.